Good afternoon, and welcome to the Voice of Wisdom. With over 60 years of experience as an investment banker, entrepreneur, investment analyst, economist, and venture capitalist, Morty Davis is Wall Street and capitalism personified. The over 400 companies for which he has raised more than $3 billion over the years have created a countless number of jobs and exciting new products. Through the Voice of Wisdom, Mr. Davis explores, analyzes, and debates the most topical political, economic, and social issues facing our world today. Joining Mr. Davis today for a discussion on the first week of the second Trump presidency is Brett Kingstone. Brett is an inventor, technology entrepreneur, award-winning real estate developer, and generous philanthropist. And now, Mr. Davis and Mr. Kingstone.
Len, I think from now on, you should add in the introduction just to make sure people realize I'm somewhat real. The statement by President, the cowboy, what's his name? Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan, yeah.
The statement that Ronald Reagan made about me. But anyway, welcome back to the weekly podcast. Excuse me. Your Voice of Wisdom. Before we get into the news of the week or the nitty-gritty of the civic news, government, economics, politics, and so forth, as I tell you every week, this program inevitably has to be somewhat depressing, because all news, to make it to the headlines, has to be negative. If you write something great, like somebody got a straight A, or somebody won a scholarship, or somebody gave $100 million to a college, it doesn't make it to the front page of the New York Times. But really bad news, the worse it is, the more you're sure it gets to the front page. So inevitably, what we discuss is, in many people's eyes, very depressing, and maybe in a majority of the people, of the listeners' eyes or ears, very depressing. So before we launch the podcast every week, and I want to welcome you back. You're my favorite people in the whole world. You pay attention. I could tell from your comments, from your insights, and maybe especially from your criticisms, even though sometimes initially they make me unhappy that you disagree with me. But I learn more from thinking about your criticisms than from the congratulations and compliments I get from other statements that I make. So I like to start out by referring to my goal in life is to make my family, my compatriots, my community, my countrymen, and indeed all the people in the world happier. I'd love to do that. And if we had more happiness, we'd be nicer to each other, and it would be a far better world. So again, I want to urge you, the best way to achieve that, excuse me.
Right back, Marty.
The best way to achieve that is get yourself a copy of this book here in front of your screen, Happiness Guaranteed or Your Misery Back. It's a book that I wrote over many years and finally got it wrapped up with the help of my daughter, who's a brilliant writer. She's written about 10 books, excellent books, Rookie Runoff. And so let me tell you first, the major overwhelming idea is for you to take control of your life. You're the boss. From today and forever after, I want you to know, and I'm going to watch you, that you're in charge of whatever happens to you. Not all of the events that happen to you, but your response to the events that happen to you. And so, since you're in charge, don't let any negative thoughts enter your mind. If they do, immediately shift gears and go to happy events. You can't focus on more than one set of ideas at a time. So if you go to happy moods, happy memories, uplifting experiences, you're going to be feeling better. And if you feel better all the time, you'll be happier throughout life. So I insist that you take charge. From now on, remember, you're in charge. It's your world. It's your, nobody could, God gave you one not warning, but
One life, Morty.
no, but one life, but one instruction or one insight that should make you feel special, and that is that each of us, each you, I, it's hard that for me to believe that, but you and all the listeners are made in God's image, and that alone should make you smile the rest of your 100 years or whatever length of time you have on this earth, that you have God's image, that you are made in God's image. So starting off with that benefit, I want you to make yourself happy. You're the one. Nobody else can make you happy. Everybody else can make you miserable. And some people, once in a while, if they're very generous and decent people, they can add to your happiness. But you're the one that controls your mood, your emotions, your response to everything that happens to you. So make up your mind from now on, from this minute on, that you're the boss and you will be happy no matter what. It's hard. There you go. That's the end of the book.
The book got so excited it jumped off the table, Morty.
Right.
So tell them about your book, for God's sakes. Now it jumped off the table. It was so excited.
Well, I have to tell you, this book is 365 pages, one page for every day of the year, on how to be happy, how to be happier. It has humor. It has great jokes. It has wisdom. It gathers or tries to gather all the wisdom on happiness that we've been given by some of the most brilliant leaders and prophets and religious person, our forefathers. And so it should have many good ideas for you to how to be happy.
Tell them the name of the book again, Morty, because I can't see it all on screen right now.
The name of the book, Brett, thank you, is Happiness Guaranteed or Your Misery Back.
I love it.
At the bottom of the front cover, it says, you can't see that, but it says, how to be happy no matter what. Obviously, if you just lost a child, you can't be happy. That's ridiculous. But how you respond to that, and that's the most devastating experience that you can have to interfere with your happiness, is really hard to contemplate. But in my experience, I've watched it, I've seen it. People lose a child, and they react, what I think maybe very rationally. The mother winds up in a mental institution, never functioning again. She can't face the reality, and the father winds up, in many cases, alcoholic, It's a terrible, terrible experience. But in other cases, they take that event as harrowing and as hurtful as anything could be, and take the memory of that child and make positive things, recalling that child and doing good things in the name of that child, and making a dinner once a year or even more often in the name of that child to raise funds for whatever the child died of. If it was cancer, to raise funds for cancer. If it was for a child that was hit by a driver on alcohol, drunk, what do they call it?
Drunk driving.
No, what's it called?
DUI.
Yeah, DUI.
Yeah.
Driving under the influence.
Influence. Yeah.
So they start a campaign to urge people not to drive under the influence.
Well, my solution to that, Morty, is I just find the guy and shoot him.
Well,
That'll make me happy. If God forbid somebody ever run over my child.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I don't know that that's a solution, because you're not given a medal for that. You might well.
It's a resolution, not a solution.
It's a resolution, but it might put you in jail further, compromising your opportunity to be happy. So I know that feeling, and if somebody did something to hurt my child, not necessarily even kill them, I would feel like I have to go. If the government, if law enforcement didn't take care of it, I would be inclined to buy a gun and go after them. As stupid as that may be as an action, that's an emotional response, and I just couldn't help it. So anyway, make out of every tragedy even something positive. Bishop Sheehan wrote a great book, some of which is encapsulated in my own book. The Power of Positive Thinking was the name of his book, a fabulous book. And it's been a bestseller for years and years and years. I recommend it strongly. But to the extent that you want to get all of the knowledge from all of the ages, from Plato to the Bible, the Old Testament, the New Testament, all of the great thinkers that talked about how to be happy. The most effective way to get that is get a copy of Happiness Guaranteed or Your Misery Back. And I'm going to make it easy for you, because all the time it's been out, everybody who's got in touch with me has paid me compliments saying how much they enjoy it, how much it's uplifted their lives, how much it's helped them to reach out to their children or their wives or their loved ones or their best friend, to help them be happier and to make themselves happier. So it's wonderful that I get compliments, and I haven't had one criticism, or if I had, it was, a correct criticism, and I took it for what it was meant to be, constructive criticism. But I've been so uplifted by that, and so I've taken the position that if you purchase this book, or even if you got it as a gift, and it's been given out as a gift hundreds of times by one head of corporation, major corporation of the Fortune 100. He tells me he gives thousands of gifts every year to his clients, to his customers, to his fellow workers, to anybody that he thinks he wants to encourage and lift up. And he says he's gotten more responses more often and well into the period well beyond the date that he sends him the gift than any other gift he's ever get. He said most of the time, if they get a gift from him, he says, if he gets a thank you, that's about it. And he never hears about it in the following period. In this book, he says, people call him during the following year even and say, gee, Matt, I can't believe that gift, the Christmas gift, or Hanukkah gift, or birthday gift you sent me has been so precious to me, so uplifting, that I have to mention it to you, that it's one of the best gifts, or maybe the best gift I've ever received. So I urge you to get it, and I'm so sure you'll enjoy it that I give you the best guarantee any sales effort, marketing effort used, and that is that if you acquire this book either by purchasing it directly yourself or getting it from a member of your family or from a colleague or somebody who likes you and wants to reward you, and you don't like it, get a hold of the purchase slip, and I will refund not only your purchase price, but double your purchase price. So you wind up with a profit, and you can still keep the book. So I don't know of a better deal than that. Keep making a profit on something where you think you made a mistake. So with that, get a hold of the book. If you're not happy with it, keep the purchase slip or get a hold of a duplicate from your Amex or something, and send it along to me, and I will give you double your purchase price. That alone should start to make you happy. Anyway, so the one thing before we launch the program, the discussion of this week's events and happenings, and they're always, with Trump, they're always exciting and even thrilling and sure to get your attention every week, as if nothing else, adds to our entertainment and to our further knowledge of politics and insights and understanding government and economics and legislation. It's really enlightening. So to the extent we listen to Donald Trump, we do learn a lot, even if we're not a fan of his, even if we're angry at him. He's a great educator, maybe an educator by virtue of you're disagreeing with some of the postures or positions that he takes. So, as I say, I'm going to come check it out. I'm going to come visit you and make sure that you're absolutely in control. And I mentioned a number of times, and I keep repeating, when I get onto a mood that depresses me, and I sense I'm going to be depressed, or it's something that's going to have me focus on some disappointment in my life, so even some tragedy in my life, I immediately shift gears and I do something that I know will make me happy. I'll either turn on a movie that I loved that makes me laugh or cry or whatever, or read a book, or call my best friend and chat with him, or go over and visit with him, or ask him to come over and visit with me, or make love. It's not a bad idea. Some people enjoy that. I hope you all do. And sometimes you get the extra dividend of having a beautiful offspring get out of that effort out of that involvement, or I go out and have a good meal at my favorite restaurant. Well, for me, what works all the time is I immediately shift gears, go down to my kitchen, open the freezer, and take out a pint of, or even a quart of Haagen-Dazs chocolate ice cream, put a bunch of chopped nuts on it, a lot of whipped cream on it, a cherry on top, and just looking at it makes me happy. And then as I start to bite into it, I become a happy camper. So whatever works for you, go to it. But shift gears away from, and you're in control. I'm telling you now, stay in control. From now till the end of your years, till 120, till you're 120. After that, we'll negotiate for more years. But do what I'm telling you, and you'll see how much happier your life will be. So without further ado, I start the program by giving you some idea of what to do to make you happy. If you go out and get the book, that'll even ensure that you're going to be happy. So now, without further ado, I want to bring on my phenomenal guest. I've had him on 4 or 5 times, and all I get is fabulous feedback from my audience. Even though he disagrees with me often, or even vehemently disagrees with me, he makes it for an exciting interview, an exciting program.
Morty, I'm scared this is going to be one of our most boring podcasts because you now telling me you're pro-Trump. We don't have anything to argue about anymore.
Brett, you're never boring. This is one of the most successful guys that I ever funded. At a very young age, he walked in, and I was so impressed with his energy and his wisdom and his ideas that even though he didn't have a company yet, I funded that company that he envisioned starting, and he's been a brilliant success in real estate, in developing new products. He's really a genius, and I love him, even though he's very aggravating. He chose to always find irritating comments about my views, my feelings, especially with respect to politics and candidates that are running for office.
Yeah, but we agree now, Morty. So what are we going to argue about?
Yeah, the audience doesn't know that we agree. But I finally came around to Brett's feeling. I really like Trump. I think he's great. I think what he's done, not everything is perfect. None of us do everything perfect. But what he's done to handle the what do you call it?
Well, Morty, he's done more in the first 4 days of his administration than Biden did in the past 4 years to positively impact the American people. I mean, how many presidents can you even recall take office in the first 4 days, start doing almost everything they promised to do when they were campaigning? A lot of these guys get up on the podium, vote for me, and I'll do this and that, and it never happens. He started from day one, man, and I love his energy. I love the excitement. Amazing.
His energy is phenomenal.
Agreed.
I would never believe he's the age that he supposedly is.
Yeah, 76. Yeah.
And I don't believe it's only 4 days. It's
amazing.
Like it feels to me all the executive
orders. Yeah.
Orders that he's.
Yep. 200 in the first day of office. Are you kidding? It's unbelievable.
Seems like it must be 20 years, not 4 years. So but also most important to me, that played a very important role, was his approach towards Israel, supporting Israel, which has been a major ally of the United States and a major do-gooder in the world. It's unbelievable. It's been made a state, Israel, by the majority of the members of the states of the UN. So it's legitimate. It's more legitimate.
Morty, I told you
More
when we spoke
legitimate
earlier.
more
Yeah.
legitimate than most states in the world, including the United States. The United States is legitimate by virtue of winning a war against Great Britain
Yep.
and
Our revolution.
and the
Yep.
kingdom and the king. So, when somebody does things right, Biden alienated me because, notwithstanding that Israel's been such a great ally, he withheld arms from them at critical points in the last year. And although he says he's been a total supporter of Israel,
It's not true.
And I've been with him at many private small dinners, and he always sounded like somebody that would be very supportive of Israel, but he turned out to be a disappointment. So I converted fully, and I'm 100% with my children, when before I was skeptical or worried that the way, and Trump was a good friend of mine. I admired him. I gave an introduction at an event in Philadelphia that he was being honored at, and I couldn't praise him more. So much so that he came up and hugged me, and at the time he wasn't married. He was there with a beautiful supermodel, and she came up and gave me a hug. And she
couldn't resist, Morty.
No, she could resist plenty. She couldn't wait after that introduction. She was so excited to hear what he was, what a great person, what a great builder, what a great do-gooder.
Yeah. So, Morty, now that you've converted to Trump, do I need to call the rabbi to give you another bris?
No, actually, a good friend of mine who owns about a dozen nursing homes throughout the United States was at a fundraiser recently, within the last 8 weeks or 10 weeks, for Donald Trump. And then he walked up to Donald and said, "What do you think of Morty Davis?" And he was so enthusiastic. He said, I should see if you could find it. I'll read it to the audience. This is what Donald Trump said to Michael Melnick, the owner of a very wealthy guy who owns all these nursing homes throughout the United States, a major do-gooder of philanthropy and charity, one of my favorite people.
Michael Melnick, that comes from President Trump, talked about you, and those are his words. Morty is the greatest guy on earth. Tell him hello from me. I miss him.
Okay.
Great.
I hope it's not like when you miss your mother-in-law and reload and are advised to reload and shoot again.
Morty, ask me it's like it's almost like, Passover. Ask me the 9 questions. It's not the 4 questions. Start with 1, because I've got to go to a meeting in about 25 minutes, so I want to get through them.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is prepared by Len, the genius.
Leonard, the genius. Absolutely.
That's my associate, my chief executive, assistant, fabulous guy, most brilliant guy.
The one who kept me out of your office when you were taking me public so I wouldn't be terrorizing you.
He protects me from people like you.
Yeah, exactly.
Really. So he puts the questions up for us to deal with.
So number 1.
Major questions for the year, for the week. So the first question he put forth for you and I to answer was Trump's threat of tariffs on Colombia the right response to that country's refusing to accept military planes carrying deportees. Is
Yep.
using tariffs a good way to affect foreign policy? What do you
So I'm
think?
going to answer this quickly, Morty, because I think now more than half of these we agree on. There won't be an argument, so I want to save the time to argue on the ones we disagree with. On this, I would say absolutely yes, and just witness the effect of that. Within hours, the president of Colombia called Trump and said, not only are you allowed to bring these planes back after he heard the public issuance of a 25% tariff on Colombia, but he said, I'll send my private plane to pick up the 2 plane loads that you were refused to deliver to my country. And thereafter, he's allowing all flights into Colombia of former Colombian citizens, the vast majority of which have committed pretty heinous crimes and shouldn't be in our country threatening our people. And then as it relates to the other question, is using tariffs a good way to affect foreign policy? Morty, actions speak louder than words. Look what happened in a couple of hours that the country of Colombia turned 180 degrees around and changed their position, as did, by the way, initially Canada and Mexico has, and I think will completely change their policies as a result of this. So I think it's a good tool, and that's my answer on the question. If you agree, we can move on to the next
As
one.
always, when I agree with you, it's with a great deal of reluctance. However, I think the approach here is one that we should pursue regularly and
Amen.
vigorously, and
Amen.
that is make statements instead of war, and
Right.
and try to compromise or diplomatically resolve the issue. We wouldn't be in war with Ukraine and Russia
Agreed.
because Ukraine said, Russia told Ukraine, if you don't allow Ukraine to join NATO, which there was no reason to allow them to join because
Right.
it already had 20 countries, which we protect in case they're attacked. The United States agrees to defend them, and we don't need one more country. And there's nothing that Ukraine could do for the United States. So all he had to say is, okay, I'll accept that, and we won't allow. We'll tell Ukraine we'll vote against it, and we won't allow you in NATO. But should you violate that, like Hitler did with the Sudeland, when he promised that he wouldn't.
Went into Poland. He went into Poland. Yes.
Czechoslovakia.
Yeah.
When he said he would.
Sudetenland. Yes.
That's it.
Okay.
And Churchill came back to England and he said, "Well, I solved the problem. This was going to be the war that ends all wars." And immediately thereafter, Hitler reneged and invaded the country. But at least he took a shot at it. He regretted it, and he felt like a fool. But I think it always pays to make the first effort to solve it by conversation, by diplomatic actions.
You were talking about Neville Chamberlain, right? Neville Chamberlain.
The Prime Minister of England.
To sum this up so we can get to the next question, Neville Chamberlain might have delivered the right message, but he wasn't the right messenger. He was weak, he was spineless, he was a coward. And Hitler sensed that, and he sensed that he could violate the agreement and nothing would happen. And nothing did happen initially. Donald Trump is a completely different messenger. When he says something, he keeps his words. And that's what we need is someone like that.
This addition that you added has no relevance, because at the time Chamberlain did that, I was alive, and I thought it was wonderful what he did. But you can't trust an evil guy. and you don't.
But even an evil guy
At
will
least-
act
at least-
predictably
at least
if he's
I-
dealing with a formidable opponent,
least-
Marty.
At least he made the effort before you send young people, your young men and women, 17, 18, 19, to get killed and to kill other nice young people of the other side that you have no animosity towards, that absent your country's instructions to take weapons that will kill as many as fast as you can, would be best friends and maybe work together to come up with solutions and new technologies that would make the world a better place. Instead, we're destroying our most valuable future assets, our young people. So diplomacy should be at least the minimum first effort. And so I am disappointed that Biden didn't say that.
Well, we both agree on that, Morty. So number 2 also was part of what we answered in number 1. How about number 3?
Number 2 is how will tariffs
We discussed that.
benefit America?
Yeah.
Will they lower inflation
We done?
as Trump insists? I started to write a book.
Oh, a minute. So, Morty, I'm going to let you speak on that for a second while I talk to my IT guy, and then I'll
Okay.
jump in after you.
All right,
Okay?
I'll wait for your return.
Yeah.
That's a good question. But unlike what Brett just said, that we agree, I certainly don't agree. Will tariffs ever lower inflation? I don't know why he disappeared. As IT guy, what's this IT guy?
All right. So, yes, Morty, we're up in the mountains.
I
and as you
disagree.
know-
I disagree that we agree on this.
So,
I definitely don't agree. I think it's the most harmful thing to do. Before the pandemic, I started writing a book.
Writing tariffs?
What would you do if you were president? And one of the things I deal with is tariffs and China and so forth. And it's the stupidest idea because it's harmful to the country that imposes.
Put tariffs on China, you're saying?
On anybody.
Okay. But you agree that they can be useful tools in negotiation, though, as they were with Colombia?
No, they're not good. They're counterproductive. Because if you can't.
Well, look at the end result with Colombia, Morty. You can't argue with success.
Because Colombia acted in a way that was intelligent and did the right thing.
Right. Most intelligent people, when met with a very significant sanction, will do the same.
But if he had to impose them, they're counterproductive to the country that proposes it. They exaggerate inflation. It hits the least of the lowest rung of our people because it deprives them of the goods that we get at prices that are unavailable absent the Chinese or the Vietnamese or one of those countries and their low labor costs providing it.
And, all right, when you're ready for my response, I'm happy to provide it.
And Walmart and Target and Home Depot and dollar stores all would disappear, or all their products available to the lowest class at low prices would disappear. Inflation would go through the roof. So it's a stupid thing.
Okay, we got it.
Fortunately, so far, Trump hasn't had to implement it. I think he plans to, and that would.
Well, fortunately,
that would be terrible.
All right. So Trump also has the military and a lot of weapons. And fortunately, throughout his entire administration, he didn't start one single war. But what he did do is when he told Bashar al-Assad, the president of Syria, that if you drop chemical weapons on your own people or the Kurds and engage in mass murder and genocide through chemical weapons, we're going to respond. And what happened? While Xi Jinping, the president of China, was having dinner with him at Mar-a-Lago, he left the table to speak to one of his generals. And when he came back, Xi Jinping asked, what was that all about? And he says, we just lost launched 50 cruise missiles at Syria in as a response to them breaking our rule and crossing our red line, because Bashar al-Assad again dropped chemical weapons on his people. So we hit him and his country, his military, with 50 cruise missiles. After doing something like that, people understand that he's a man of his word and that it's best to negotiate and resolve, as opposed to do what Hitler did, was independently just violate every agreement. Now, getting back to what you said about...
Wait a second. I couldn't disagree with you more.
Okay, we agree.
Because
okay.
one of the biggest bull stories, not proverbs, but maxims or whatever it's called.
Okay.
Is repeated by Ronald Reagan and almost every president that comes along, repeating this statement. If I could quote it correctly, that a strong military, an overwhelmingly strong defense
is the greatest deterrent. Yes, and it was also said by Teddy Roosevelt when he said, walk softly but carry a big stick.
Statement is the most...
You're right, Morty.
That statement is the most full of bunk statement I ever heard, because there's no country stronger than the United States that's more involved with more wars, that's the incipient of more wars than the United States.
We had no new wars under Trump. We had no new wars under Trump.
I'm saying under that motto, ever since the end of the Second World War, the United States has been in more major wars and killed more people than all the other countries combined. More. And being that we have that motto, that shouldn't be. We were in the Korean War. I don't know why. If you explain to me why, I'll appreciate it. We were in the Vietnam War. I don't know why. We had no vital interest. There was no attack on America that occurred. We were in the Afghan war, because 3,000 people were killed at the World Trade Center and at the Pentagon. We lost, I can't even tell you the immense, astronomical amount of blood and treasure that we lost. With that treasure that we spent in Afghanistan and the lives we lost in American youth, the American military volunteers and service people, men and women, it's incalculable. It's unbelievable.
So Morty, if I may.
For what?
I'm with you. So Morty, if I may.
And after Afghanistan, what's the next thing the one after that? Iraq. Iraq. That Bush.
Well, Iraq, I believe Iraq was before Afghanistan.
Okay.
Was it
not?
But
so, Iraq, you're right.
But Morty, I agree with you. I'm not going to argue. I'm butting in because I want to get to the point that we disagree on.
Len points out there were two Iraqs.
Right. So just before we go,
two
Morty.
Before and after.
Yeah. Morty. Morty, I have something to say. Morty, war is a result of failed diplomacy. And usually failed diplomacy comes from weak leaders. Biden was a weak leader. Trump is a strong leader.
War is the idea that you could win, so you act.
Everybody loses in war. People get killed.
The United States acts precipitously because they're so powerful. It's not our duty to run the whole world.
I agree with you, and Trump has said that a dozen times. Said it more than a dozen times, maybe hundreds.
I'm not criticizing Trump.
We should not be the world's policeman.
We don't know yet what Trump's going to do, but every other president since that statement was first made, except Eisenhower, who warned against
military-industrial complex,
over dependence and over confidence in defense. When I was young, I don't know if you remember that, or you were even old enough. The Defense Department was called the War Department. Are you aware of that?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So that was not a good name, because you don't say when your father passed away, to the guy, I'm sorry your father dropped dead, you say it in a nice way. So we said, wow, to say War Department, that sounds like we're prepared to go to war. So we made a Defense Department, even though most of the money is spent for offense. We don't have an offense budget and defense. So it's nonsense. The reason we have wars is because we're so ready to go to war and launch.
Well, hopefully that'll change now. Len, can you jump to number 4, since I think that's one of the more important issues that Morty and I can debate, and read out that question?
Do President Biden's pardons of his family and others justify Trump's pardons of the January 6th rioters?
No.
So, Morty, I'd like to hear your thoughts, and then I'll be very quick on mine.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
There's no justification for pardoning murderers that confessed to killing policemen that would protect.
No policemen were killed by rioters, Morty.
Sure
They were police that were injured. The only people killed that day were protests. A woman who was shot.
All those people were tourists, right?
No.
Trump doesn't know the difference between tourists and terrorists. He thinks that's the same word.
So this is the guy you like now, and you really think that way of him?
What's a fact is a fact. I love him for the total, not for.
Why didn't Biden arrest all those people burning down the cities in the Black Lives Matter riots and the Ferguson riots? What they did in Portland, Oregon, the hundreds of police that were severely wounded. Never did he prosecute them.
That's not the federal government.
These sentences were unjust and unfair, and he had every right to pardon them. And by the way, the Biden crime family should all be locked up, Marty. You know that.
That's not Biden's role, because the states have to deal with local.
It's not Biden's role to pardon his entire family when they've been stealing from the American people for decades.
But they're not equivalent. There's nobody that has been accused.
It's worse.
No,
it's worse when the president pardons his entire family, because they're all a bunch of crooks.
Nobody has been accused of anything that's against the law by his.
Who?
Nobody.
Who?
Nobody.
Who hasn't?
Nobody.
Who?
Maybe.
So Hunter didn't cheat the IRS out of $3 million. That's why he had a friend loan him the money to pay it off. So Hunter wasn't on drugs, selling access to his father all the time. Come on, Morty, you know better than that. Look at the laptop. They said that wasn't.
How do you defend the United States' behavior in Afghanistan, in
Iraq,
when under false pretense we attacked Iraq, Saddam Hussein, on the theory, supposed facts, that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. And we went to war on a fiction, because after we won that war and overcame Saddam Hussein, killed Saddam Hussein, killed his 2 sons, killed many Iraqis, and lost our own people, we found that there was no truth to it.
May I answer your question, Morty?
It shows you how quick you pull the trigger when you're so loaded with it. And also, we are responsible for every single war that's going on, because that's our number one export, the most profitable export. And every congressman votes for it, because how do you vote psychologically, verbally, against defense? That's, defense, you have to be for defense. And more than that, every single state, every congressman or senator is a beneficiary of defense spending, gets contracts for his community, his state, employment contracts, industrial production contracts, weapons contracts. So nobody, it's hard to say no. After the end of the Cold War, they said we're going to have a big benefit from the end of the war because of what we'll save in defense spending. And ever since then, it's gone straight up. It's a sickness.
So, Morty, to answer your question,
yeah.
Again, war is a failure of diplomacy. Okay, We should
Or-
not be having these wars, but let me
or-
specifically give you two words that I want you to remember. Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney is the greatest traitor, not only to and his daughter, Liz Cheney, to not only the Republican Party, but the American people. Dick Cheney lied to our Defense Department. He used a false person within the Iraqi government who made up a bunch of lies because he wanted to take power and overthrow Saddam Hussein. You're right. It wasn't Afghanistan. Afghanistan was just. We retaliated for them blowing up our World Trade Towers. However, Iraq was a total fraud.
I may be right, but you're wrong.
All right. Maybe
it wasn't Dick Cheney. It was maybe Dick Cheney as well, but it was.
He ran Halliburton. Halliburton made billions of dollars on the war.
It was George Bush. It was.
And who do you think whispered? And who was George Bush's vice president?
It was Colin
Morty.
Powell. It was Colin Powell.
Who was George Bush's vice president? Please answer the question.
You choose whoever you want out of the administration to accuse.
I'm telling you right now, Dick Cheney got us in a needless war. Please answer the question.
You choose whoever you want out of the administration to accuse.
I'm telling you right now, Dick Cheney got us in a needless war. Who do you think did it, Morty?
Bush, and some people say it was Bush getting even for the way the Iraq treated his father. I don't believe that, but
I don't believe it either.
But he did it, and he had.
Well, Bush's biggest mistake is he listened to Dick Cheney, who profiteered on that war when Halliburton did all the construction of all the bases over there.
He listened to Colin Powell. He listened to his generals. He listened to everybody. Said it.
Morty, Colin Powell advised them not to enter that war. It's on the record. He specifically was against us invading Iraq.
He was an advocate that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction.
No, that was Dick Cheney.
Absolutely, no.
All right. So, Morty, we may disagree on the facts, but we both agree that war should never happen.
You like to choose your facts.
Was the war, we both agree the war should have never happened.
Right.
We both, fine, let's leave it there. We agree. So, moving on to the next question.
You and me agreeing on that.
You want to argue some more?
Morty. Does not make up for the terrible amount of damage, hurt, lives that we lost.
It should have never happened, Morty.
That we lost.
It should have never happened. And neither should of the Russian-Ukraine war, where Biden sat on his behind and did nothing.
That doesn't mean you're saying it was right. And you're by saying
Morty, I said it was wrong. We should have never invaded Iraq.
Right.
But I know who was responsible for it, and it certainly wasn't Colin Powell. He was one of our greatest generals, greatest secretaries of state, Defense Department. He was an amazing guy, and he saw clearly. Dick Cheney became a multimillionaire and maybe even a billionaire on that war.
It emanated from the brilliance of Dwight Eisenhower, who was a major Republican, who helped us win the Second World War. We should have paid attention to him. He said the biggest.
He warned us about the military-industrial complex.
Yeah, at the end, every president that finishes his tenure says what a great job he did. You know,
he did.
He didn't do that. He took that opportunity to warn us about the future,
right?
About the danger of the military-industrial complex, and nobody was in a better position to make that statement. Okay, question 5.
Okay.
You have it in front of you?
Yes. Is the U.S. facing a national emergency on energy, as Trump says? Was it wise to end EV mandates, as Trump has? Quick answer from my side. We should never order Americans to buy anything, EVs or anything else. We should give them the freedom to choose. That's what Milton Friedman, my professor at Stanford, wrote a book on. It was called Free to Choose.
I love Milton Friedman, but he couldn't be more wrong when he said this exactly.
Well, he was a Nobel Prize winner in economics, Morty. He's a bright guy like you are.
But he proposed the most selfish thing I ever heard.
Let me give you another fact.
Let me tell you what he said.
All right.
famous. He said the only role of the corporation is to maximize profits for their shareholders, not that they have any obligation to the community, to their employees, to anything. That was nonsense. That's greed. That's
No,
terrible.
I don't think so, Morty.
That's
It's
greed.
the
That's
objective. If
terrible.
you invest in a company, you expect them to make money for you.
I
Okay, well, he
don't,
didn't say greed is good. He said
don't,
what their main
don't,
job is.
don't
But at any
express.
rate, on this point, I agree with you as
Since
well.
you're,
We can move on.
since you're Jewish, you shouldn't have that view that it's okay to just be selfish and take care of your interests and disregard the needs of
Morty,
fellow
Morty,
man.
Morty. I'm a Jew who owns a gun range. I'm a Jew who belonged to the JDL. Okay. I don't agree with the vast majority of our liberal Jewish brethren. I think they're still wandering in Egypt. Okay.
I never said you were a Jew that was not crazy.
And Morty, you once again win on that argument. I won't even debate.
Owning a gun is so counterproductive. One of these days, you'll wind up, God forbid, killing your own kids.
No, my kids are trained on how to use guns. We have a big.
Let me tell you something. Did you ever hear of Charles Lindbergh? Did you ever hear of Charles Lindbergh?
Yes, I did.
He was the first man in the world, first American, but first man in the world to fly solo across from the United States to Paris.
Right.
And very successful, very creative, very genius in developing products. And he became very rich. And he had a daughter.
Who was kidnapped.
Was it a daughter or a son? I forget. A son.
It was a son who was kidnapped. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And the son would, because he didn't respond quickly enough, the kidnappers that took him hostage killed that kid.
Right.
So
terrible.
It was a very famous story. They changed the penalty to a death penalty if you kidnap a kid. I worked with a guy on Wall Street who was a major guy in the research department, and he told me his family was so wealthy. His father owned all the mills in New England, or not in New England, the major mills in New England at the time, all of them in New Hampshire. And he said he owned every mill in New Hampshire. Everybody in New Hampshire at the time, just about everybody, was working for his father.
Mm-hmm.
He built houses for them to live in. He built markets for the employees to buy stuff, and so they
give
could
him a
buy
good life. He made a good life for his employees. Yeah,
right. So much, it was so popular that he said they discussed him as they do in Ireland, which has a supposed approach or payback, that somebody who's that big and that helpful to society could have the right to the bride on the first night before
her wedding. Listen, Morty, that sounds like something out of old England.
Wait.
Centuries ago.
That's not the story.
Yeah.
It said that's how powerful he was.
Yeah.
So after Lindbergh kid was killed, he had the guy, a son, who was the guy I was talking to. His name is Lindsay.
Right.
I forget that was his last name. I forget his first name. Jim Lindsay or something.
Right.
And he told me that after that, his father was worried that he and his sister would be subject to kidnapping because he was out front. Mm-hmm. Everybody knew he was a multi-billionaire at the time, although at that time there were no billionaires, but one of the wealthiest people in the world, and his kids would get kidnapped. So he hired around the clock, 24 hours, 3 different guards, a new guard every 8 hours, to be there with a shotgun to watch Jim, and his sister. And he says one day, after years of watching the kids, one day one of the security guards watching his kids, was cleaning his gun, didn't realize a bullet was in the gun, and a bullet popped out and went through the brain of his sister. He says his mother wound up in a mental institution. She never functioned again. His father wound up a terrible alcoholic, never performed anything again, never went to work again. So
that guy was a schmuck, Morty, and he didn't know how to handle weapons. That doesn't justify anything. It's a terrible thing. But that being said,
it happens every single day that
not in my house,
that the
not in my
guns
house, and not in the house of
that
the
the
Navy
guns of
SEALs who I
police-
sponsor.
the
Yeah,
guns of police and FBI guys who are trained to it.
you're more likely to get hit by lightning than that happening with a policeman,
Yeah,
Morty. But anyway, I've got to go now, but I want to end on this. You are the greatest. We disagree sometimes. I think it gets your blood up. It
Sometimes.
invigorates you to fight with me.
On a
But
day-
I love you.
on a-
You are the
on a-
reason why my company succeeded. It was just an idea when I showed up to you, and you made it happen, Morty. So all I could say is, no matter how much you tell me I'm a shugana, and most of the time you're right, I always am indebted to you, Morty, because you're the greatest guy, and I can't thank you enough.
I'm indebted to you because you made me a hero. I took a kid that had no record, no track record, and I gave you the money to start it, and you made me look like a genius. So
You are a
I'm
genius,
indebted
Morty.
to you. But I want to tell you something. It's interesting that even on a day when we supposedly disagree, and we do on a major issue,
Yes, we do.
we agree, you aggravate the hell out of me.
Sei gesund, Morty.
Is that your purpose? You're very good at it. God bless
I
you.
love you, Morty. You're the
And
best.
God bless our audience. I hope you enjoyed it. Isn't Brett great?
God bless America. We're in for great years ahead of us, Morty. I couldn't tell you. I feel more positive than ever before. And on this, you and I agree 1,000,000%.
I sure hope so. And
We're going to get a lot more happiness,
praying-
Morty, like your book says.
I'm praying that you're right. God bless you. And to my wonderful audience, I want to wish you again a great week. Have a wonderful every day of your life. God bless you. And I look forward to being back with you and you being back with me a week from tonight, the next Wednesday evening at 6:30. Thank you all. And may every day of your life be better than the day before until you're 120. After that, we'll negotiate for more. Bye-bye.